This year, George Bush Sr. also marked his birthday by driving a big fat political wedge between the Republican Party and the party's conservative base by announcing essentially his support for Barack Obama's Supreme Court nominee, Judge Sotomayor.
She should be given a fair hearing. She should be accorded every courtesy that goes with her record as a judge and her aspirations to be a Supreme Court justice. And I have the feeling she will be confirmed. I think she's had a distinguished record on the bench, and she should be entitled to fair hearings. I mean, she was called by somebody a racist. Well, that's not right. I mean, it's not fair. It doesn't help the process to get out there name-calling. So let them decide whether they want to vote for her or not and get on with it.
It's not fair, he said. That's not right. These words from the preeminent elder statesman of the Republican Party, echoing those of his daughter-in-law, the former First Lady, the single most popular figure in the Republican Party by a mile, who also expressed her support for Judge Sotomayor earlier this week.
As a woman, I'm proud that there might be another woman on the court, and so we'll see what happens, but I wish her well.
What we are seeing now is would-be moderating voices in the Republican Party essentially saying, leave Judge Sotomayor alone. It's the elder President Bush, it's Laura Bush, it's former McCain advisor, former Bush advisor Mark McKinnon, who gave his advice to the party in part on this show. Also, the most prominent Latino in Republican politics, former chair of the Republican Party, Senator Mel Martinez. All of these folks expressing some level of support for Sonia Sotomayor. And yet, the conservative movement to oppose her nomination steams ahead, a movement that showed pretty radical political judgment in the first place by choosing a conservative political operative named Manuel Miranda as the guy who would publicly call for a filibuster of Sotomayor's nomination. Manuel Miranda's last job, after he got fired from the Senate for hacking into other people's computers, his last job was running an organization to end filibusters altogether. Literally, that was the name of the organization, the Coalition to End Judicial Filibusters. That's the guy they put forward to call for a judicial filibuster of Judge Sotomayor. Today, further news of the political judgment that's driving the anti-Sotomayor movement, despite all the cautions to the contrary from the establishment GOP. The Washington Post is reporting today that the anti-Sotomayor movement has turned to the PR agency responsible for arguably the worst political ad campaign of the last decade. The worst example of embarrassing, train wreck, scorched earth politicking in a national election that we have seen in a generation.
If you have any question about what John Kerry's made of, just spend 3 minutes with the men who served with him 30 years.
I served with John Kerry.
I served with John Kerry.
John Kerry has not been honest about what happened in Vietnam.
He is lying about his record.
I know John Kerry is lying about his first Purple Heart because I treated him for that injury.
John Kerry lied to get his Bronze Star. I know. I was there. I saw what happened.
When the chips were down, you could not count on John Kerry.
John Kerry is no war hero.
He dishonored his country. He most certainly did.
I served with John Kerry. John Kerry cannot be trusted.
Swift Boat Veterans for Truth is responsible for the content of this advertisement.
Yeah, the same group that created the Swift Boat campaign against John Kerry in 2004, who decided that the way to run a guy who never went to Vietnam against a decorated Vietnam War hero was to say the war hero didn't deserve his medals. That PR company is who conservatives are turning to now to lead their efforts against Sonia Sotomayor. The Swift Boat campaign was so over the top, so shocking, that people started making parodies of it as soon as these ads came out. I have to say, this one has always been my favorite of the many Swift Boat parodies. It was done on Mark Maron and Mark Riley's dearly departed morning show on Air America, which was called Morning Sedition.
If you have any question about what John Kerry's made of, just spend 3 minutes with the men who served with him 30 years.
John Kerry? He bad.
John Kerry bad.
I don't like him.
John Kerry bad.
John Kerry loses.
Me no like John Kerry. He not good.
John Kerry's my poop.
Fire truck. John Kerry not good.
Kerry no good.
Bad.
I don't like John Kerry. John Kerry took my shoe.
Swift Boat Veterans for Truth is responsible for the content of this advertisement.
The Swift Boat campaign was so iconic that it didn't just end in 2004 in terms of people parodying it. It survived 2 more election cycles and was still getting parodied in the 2008 election. This one was courtesy of the Huffington Post's 23-6.
Barack Obama lied to the American people when he told us that he was black. He's not black. I should know because I'm black. Barack Obama. Barack Obama, Barack Obama, Barack Obama, Barack Obama, Barack Obama, Barack Obama, and Barack Obama.
This message is sponsored by Swift Kids for Truth.
The Swift Boat campaigning from 2004 so lowered the bar, so shocked the conscience of what would be paid for and produced and put on television in an American election that it is still being parodied today. To get swift-boated is now political jargon, meaning that you've been the target of an over-the-top, beyond outrageous, offensive political smear campaign. And now the PR firm that brought us to swift-boating is the firm that's going to be leading the conservative campaign against Sonia Sotomayor. What we're seeing here is the mainstream Republican Party splitting from its activist base. The base, which is comfortable with this sort of scorched earth politicking, versus the relatively moderate adults of the party, the Poppy Bush wing of the party, the part of the GOP that may actually have its eye on someday, somehow, winning another election. Joining us now is Chris Kofinas, former communications director for John Edwards' 2008 presidential campaign. Mr. Kofinas, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
I guess it was only a matter of time until the group that repped the Swift boaters got involved here. Do you think the Republicans are at war with themselves about what to do with this nomination?
I think they are, and I think this has been kind of been growing since the presidential election. I think there is an emerging civil war between the moderate wing, which is declining by the day within the Republican Party, and the true right-wing faction that seems to dominate it, both in the media and I think in the reality on the ground. This whole debate about what to do with Judge Sotomayor's confirmation I find interesting because at the end of the day, listen, I don't think it's a big judgment to say she's going to get confirmed. And so the notion that you are going to go out there and run this kind of scorched earth, gutter politics of personal destruction, to what end? At the end of the day, what you're going to end up doing is alienating the very demographics, and I'm talking about Hispanics and women, that you need to attract more of in order to be competitive at the national level. It is an amazing strategy of basically self-defeat. As a Democrat, I'm happy about it, but it's almost inexplicable.
Well, I always believe that there's a method to the madness. I believe that somebody has to understand all those basic political realities you just explained and still be making the decision to pay this PR firm, to send the letters to the RNC, to get the articles covered, to send out the many times a day email blasts that I get, the anti-Sotomayor stuff. Somebody in Republican or more likely conservative circles thinks this is a good idea. To whose advantage could this possibly be? Is it just about fundraising?
I think it has actually probably less to do with fundraising and more to do about activating the base. I think there is this general perception within some wings of the Republican Party that thinks the reason why they lost the last presidential election is because they didn't scream loud enough. They didn't have the right candidate. The right wing of the base wasn't motivated enough. That the country really is a right-wing country. And it is a fundamental misunderstanding of what has happened in America over the last 6 months, year, 2 years. There's been a shift in this country, a dramatic ideological shift. We've moved to the center left, not the center right or the right. They keep believing it is a right-wing nation. It is not. And so I think they really believe if they do these type of things, if they scream loud enough, people are going to listen. What they don't understand is the more they scream, the more they do these types of politics, they end up alienating people over and over again.
And thinking about the concrete harm that might do, not only to the conservative cause, but to Republicans in particular. You worked for the presidential campaign of John Edwards. You traveled around the country with him. In your view, how much are Republican candidates who are up for re-election likely to suffer from these types of attacks against Sotomayor from the conservatives? Is this going to hurt people running for the House, people running for the Senate on the Republican ticket?
Well, I think it is a piece of a larger puzzle. And I think what we've seen from the Republican Party since President Obama was sworn into office is a strategy of not just saying no, but a strategy of being nasty and brutish. You've seen this from who basically become the spokespersons of the party, people like Rush Limbaugh. And so when you have this strategy of going out there and alienating individuals, of talking, if you will, non-solutions to the fundamental problems that the country faces, you're not going to win. You're not going to win voters. The problem of running now a nasty campaign against an accomplished jurist that no one, I think, can disagree with is you're not going to alienate Hispanics and women. You're going to say to moderates that we are completely out of touch with reality. And I think it is, again, this self-immolation political strategy that the Republican Party seems to have employed. It is, again, it's almost unbelievable to believe that any party would go down this road. But it tells you that they honestly believe that this country is a right-wing country.
Chris Kofinas, former community